Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. What I'd like to do in the next 15 minutes or so is just kind of give you an overview of our program and put it in the context of sort of the bigger environment and culture of the maker movement. And so, SINAIMedMaker challenge, creating novel technology solutions for healthcare. Right, the focus here is on technological solutions, whether those are hardware, software, internet-based, cloud, any of that is all sort of fair game. Our MedMaker 101 focus here is, let the class begin here, I guess. So technology impacts our lives constantly. This graphic just kind of shows how, whether it's how we interact with one another, how we interact with work, how we travel, how we shop, everything that we do is impacted by technology, often connected through a cloud-based nexus. And it's not just in our lives, it's also in healthcare. We think of technology in healthcare in terms of maybe some of the big machines that you see when you go to the hospital, right? Maybe you're in some kind of expensive imaging device or robotic surgery. We're talking about artificial hearts and artificial prosthesis that are all highly, very, very technical. Physicians are no longer writing on clipboards. We're taking electronic medical records, and even the stethoscope has been modified with high tech. Patients interact with their doctors through apps. This is some work that was developed here at the Sinai App Lab. And even if you're not a patient, right, just people want to keep track of their activity, heart rate, how much you're sleeping, things like this. So just as a consumer market, the health tech is a growing area. So where does all this stuff come from? In engineering school, we're taught about this product development process, which is sort of a cyclic process starting with a need, and you go through from concept to prototype and all these different stages, and it's an iterative process. You keep trying to make the technology better and better. It's done in, maybe there's some intellectual property that's involved at some point, or even putting things through FDA regulation and eventually dealing with marketing and advertising and so forth, sales folks. This is often done in rooms, behind closed doors, secretively, as people are keeping their trade secrets, and by people that have been trained in specializing in engineering for these kinds of jobs. And what we're trying to do with the MedMaker challenge is kind of disrupt this process in one of the early phases of this cycle, and open it up instead of keeping this in behind closed doors and by people that are by engineers exclusively, opening it up to a format like this where we have interactive engagement between multidisciplinary people, clinicians, patients, software designers, hardware designers, who aren't necessarily experts in the particular topic that we're focusing on, pain and fatigue, although we also have a number of experts here specifically focusing on that area, so we can keep the problems and the solutions targeted to solutions that actually could be translatable down the road. So this kind of disruption is reflective of a new way of designing and creating new technologies, and it's sort of a disruptive technology in terms of the times they are changing. This is Dylan's new culture at the time at his time in the 60s and so forth. There's sort of a cultural revolution going on now as well in terms of technology development and the idea of democratizing innovation and making it accessible to anyone who's interested in developing new devices. And so this idea of a maker revolution is really everywhere in the media. You talk about maker clubs and different events, do it yourself, hackathons, things like this. Being able to take those complex prostheses and maybe use a 3D printer and make something for $50 that can actually help either people in underserved areas or just making it more accessible to a broader range of patients. And so this is really a, like I said, sort of a disruptive approach. And this is a sign on the engineering school at Purdue University, actually, talking about sort of defining a maker. And you can't read it, so I just sort of printed it here. What it says is we should be about making things work better, faster, smaller, smarter, building bridges between what's known and what's not known, tinkering, toiling, writing in a variety of languages, including code, hacking, dissecting, an insatiable desire to uncomplicate the complicated, to be inspired easily, and believe that just because something hasn't been thought of doesn't mean it isn't possible. It's a really exciting opportunity, and imagination is really what drives this forward. And so this is the whole idea behind being a maker, and that's what we're trying to cultivate here this weekend. Traditionally, this is done in events called Hackathon, typically. That name comes from a sort of a combination of the term hacking in terms of exploratory technology development, and marathon, meaning being a long and tiring event. So I guess fatigue is kind of relevant in there as well. So multiple day kind of an event. Promotes novel technology solutions and encourages cross-disciplinary learning and teamwork. That's really what we're after this weekend. Quick show of hands, has anybody in the audience been to a hackathon before? Okay, good. For those of you that have been, any prize winners or anybody actually started a company based on that? Yeah, a couple? Wonderful. All right. So you guys are going to be targets for the coming teams. So this is a kind of a big deal in this hackathon culture. It's actually started the first time in '99. It was a relatively small effort by a software company and trying to develop new code for a Palm device. And over the years, this effort has really just grown tremendously. Examples of one company that was started in a hackathon and was ended up getting sold for $85 million in 2011 for one of the big software companies. And so, so these things have sort of developed a mind of their own or a life of their own. They attract innovators. They attract industry as well, because it's a great opportunity to get new ideas, to recruit people that are on the cutting edge of technology development. And in 2010, the first health-focused hackathon occurred as a collaboration between Health 2.0 and Department of Health and Human Services. And so since that time, the growth in health hackathons has risen exponentially, and two of the major players are MIT Hacking Health and Hacking Health New York, both of which have we benefited from their participation and assistance with putting this event together. Let's see. Unfortunately, the word hacking has become sort of synonymous with computer crimes, and everywhere in the media you hear about these terrible things that are going on, and most institutions are concerned about being affiliated with any kind of hacking. And so in order to avoid that kind of a negative connotation, we've chosen to focus on this MedMaker approach. This is where our name came from. So we're looking at medical applications of this maker culture and developing a challenge environment where you'll be working on new solutions that will be ultimately judged at the end, and hopefully we'll be giving out some awards. Hopefully hopefully you'll be getting the award, right? We're definitely giving awards. I don't want to give the wrong impression about that. So we're bringing together a bunch of people from the New York City area here. Again, like Janice mentioned, focusing on pain and fatigue. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is to try to cultivate an ecosystem here at Mount Sinai where we're trying to focus on multidisciplinary, team-based health tech innovation. I think I'm going to skip ahead here just in the interest of time. We've got a wonderful panel discussion that's going to be putting this problem in proper context, so you'll hear about all the importance of pain and fatigue. This might be you guys tomorrow. Let's see, so the general flow of this, I mean, the whole culture of this and the whole environment is supposed to be pretty flexible. We do have to have some organization in terms of getting through the pitching process and the final presentations at the end, but really we want to have a lot of open time for you to interact with one another and have it be sort of organic in terms of how you come up with your ideas and solutions and how you interact with one another. As you saw, we've laid out some tables and stuff outside, but feel free to kind of move things around and organize things that work best for your group. So we'll be setting the stage today, doing problem and solution pitching, and also doing team formation. So by the end of today, you're going to know what teams you're in. Tomorrow, we're focused entirely on problem solving. You're going to be designing, prototyping, coding, whatever it is you need to do to make your solution. And then on Sunday morning, you'll finalize that process, and we'll do some practice presentations, and then your final presentations and the awards. And we really hope this is going to be something that's just the beginning of the teams for you, that you'll come up with some solutions that you're excited about and want to continue those even after the hackathon. Another show of hands, how many people are actually Sinai affiliates? Okay, so about half. So it'll be easy for you guys to continue interacting with one another, and the other ones that are new to Mount Sinai, welcome to Sinai. And we hope that you'll also be able to continue these interactions and make sure that you make the right contacts and give each other contact information so that you can continue this after you leave. So this is a little bit small, but this is a copy of the program that you have that you should have picked up during registration. If you didn't pick it up, please do so, because this kind of guides the whole events for this weekend. So next we'll be having these presentations from our clinical panel to put things in context. We'll have a couple of speakers specifically talking about hardware and software solutions. Then we'll have a presentation from our premier sponsor, Salesforce and Persistent. And then we'll jump into the preliminary problem pitches. So you'll want to be starting to think about problems already. Another show of hands. Anybody has already come to this with the idea that they've got a problem in mind that they're looking for a solution for? Anybody? Yes, a few. Good. Okay. So some of you already have some plans in mind. Others, that's what we're trying to spur here, is what problems you want to work on. And so what we're going to do is some 1-minute pitches. And in order to have you start thinking about how this is going to work out, I'm going to call Sonia up here and do an example pitch. It's she has 60 seconds to come up, introduce herself, tell a little story about what she wants to work on, why it's important. Sonia, come on up, and put this in the context of why she wants to solve this problem. She's not talking about solutions at this point. There's a solution pitch later in the day. Right now, it's just presenting the problem, because now you'll have time to think about what you want the solutions to be. So, yeah, Sonia, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Sonia. I'm a fourth-year medical student here at Mount Sinai. I'd like to address migraines, an extremely prevalent illness worldwide affecting millions of children and adults. Migraines can be not only very painful and incapacitating, but they also account for over 1 million visits to the ER a year. They can be hard to predict, but a substantial portion of patients with migraines have prodromal symptoms. And if caught early, many can actually take medications or take appropriate measures to at least lessen the severity of the migraine. I want to create something to help warn patients that a migraine might be coming based off of various prodromal symptoms, and hopefully our intervention can help them at least make their lives a little bit better and a little bit less painful.
Okay, so that's a perfect example. It was about 50 seconds long, and that's about how much time you're going to have. So think ahead about what problem you want to work on, and that's the kind of pitch that we're going to ask you to give. Obviously, it's not a big formal thing, but it's important to clearly articulate what it is you want to solve, because the next step is going to be for people to kind of come around and find you and talk to you about what different solutions might be of interest. And then you have the solution pitches. Actually, is my folder there? Yeah, thanks. Actually, it's the one that she has. Yeah, sorry. So for the solution pitches, it's going to be a similar format, 60 seconds, and you might come, this is just some things to be a little bit thought-provoking about what kinds of solutions you might think about, whether assessment and characterization tools. This might be different sensors or imaging tools. We're going to be talking about using imaging for detecting pain, for example. Tracking and monitoring devices and platforms. So you might think about different apps that track patient or healthcare worker sleep patterns, for example, or some wearables that patients might use to monitor posture or muscle activity or something that might be related to pain and fatigue. Different therapeutic apps and devices. So here we're talking about maybe biofeedback, alternative therapies, electrical stimulation, things like this that might be used to help to address pain and fatigue. And then something in the decision-making and management apps. This might be some sort of cloud platform or apps for tracking patient-reported outcomes and dealing with things like readmission, which is a major issue in the context of pain. So just to kind of get the juices flowing a little bit, and again, we'll have some panel discussion and some speakers specifically addressing some of these topics. Each of you should have a sticker identifying your specialty or your special interest. It isn't necessarily your main background. It could be what you want to do within the context of a team. And you're welcome to have more than one of these stickers on you if you're interested in a couple of different areas. Again, maybe just run through some quick show of hands. Clinical specialists, how many clinicians do we have here? Okay. The sort of biological, biomedical specialists. Okay. Software developers. All right. Hardware. A few? Oh, excellent. Okay. And product user interface? Great. Nice. And then we've also got several mentors. They haven't all come tonight. They're going to be kind of sporadic throughout the weekend, but we'll have a mentor bar where you can go and seek advice as you need it, and they'll be mingling around and trying to help out the teams as well. Looks like a nice mix of capabilities, so it should make for some nice multidisciplinary teams. What should you expect to really accomplish over the course of a weekend? You're not going to develop a new prosthetic or something like that, right? That's not realistic. What you're looking for is actually what's called a minimum viable product. It's the least effort needed to develop something that you can actually show how it works, get your design concept across. If it's a hardware thing, it could be something as simple as a folded piece of paper that shows how you're going to enter something, or something made out of cardboard here, prototype this way. We do have a prototyping facility here, and Pete Baccaris is generously made that available during the weekend. So if some of you are specifically looking at some hardware solutions and you want to either do laser cutting or 3D printing, Arduino programming, some of those kinds of things, we've got those resources available. So that's an option, but you don't have to build something like that. And if you're doing software solutions, sometimes sort of a storyboard kind of an approach rather than actually spending the time coding it up, at least as the initial proof of concept, allows you to help visualize how this is going to work and convey your idea to one another and eventually to a panel of judges. And then on the last day, we're going to, let's see, so there's a bunch of like food stuff here, but basically you need to know, I guess, when you're going to eat. So everybody has a $50 credit for the cafeteria here at Mount Sinai. We're providing dinner tonight and Sunday, and then for the rest of the meals on Saturday and Sunday, you have access to the cafeteria here. So I guess you kind of want to keep an eye on that, and then we'll have some snacks and drinks and coffee and stuff distributed around as well. Let's see. So there'll be some practice presentations with a panel of practice judges who are not the final judges. You'll have 7 minutes during that time. I'll get into some of those details later, but you'll have a chunk of time there to do your practice pitch, get some feedback, refine and finalize your pitch, and then starting at 5 o'clock on Sunday, you'll be doing your final pitch presentations to a panel of judges that include experts from the clinical realm, from the startup space. Sam Sia here is one of the founders of the Harlem Biospace here in Manhattan, and a patient with chronic pain who can provide feedback from that perspective. And then over dinner, they'll be deliberating the judging outcomes, and we'll ask you to fill out a quick questionnaire to give us some feedback so we can continue to make this better each time. And then the awards will be given at the end of the day. In terms of the pitch content, this is what we're talking about here. You're going to be talking about what problem are you addressing, why is this important, make sure that's conveyed clearly. What solution have you come up with? Why is it so awesome? Why is this the thing that's going to solve the problem that you've addressed? And then we're going to also ask you, because we're judging partly on the commercial potential, we're going to ask you to comment briefly on a business model. This isn't something that you have to do in depth, but just to consider, what's your constituency? Is this for patients, doctors, consumers? Is this something that insurance is going to reimburse for? What size market do you anticipate having for your device? It's important to think about those things when you're developing new technologies. And if you take a look on the website and click on design evaluation, you'll actually see all the criteria and exactly the forms that the judges will be using, so you understand how you'll be evaluated. And then we have first, second, and third prizes ranging from $1,500 to $3,500. So you'll be, some 3 teams will be walking away with this. This is an amount that will be divided among the members of the team, at the end of the awards, this is going to be, I'm sorry to say, it'll be a check in the mail kind of a thing, but we have to get that to you, so we'll have to get your Social Security, all that kind of information to send that to you. But it's really exciting, and literally, this is an event that could change your life. This is an example of a company that was spun out of exactly one of these types of health hackathons in 2014. The idea was simple. This guy's grandparents were having a really hard time keeping track of all the medication that they were dealing with, what time they had to take it, what combinations of medication they had to use, and he thought, well, why don't we just prepackage this and have this as a service where the pills will become prepackaged at each day and each time of day, as what you can see here, and then they just pull out these envelopes, tear them open, and problem solved. Within a year, they raised $4 million for this company called Pillpack. They now have more than 200 employees distributed throughout the US and have raised a tremendous amount of money in support of this. And so, this guy is not in school anymore. He was a PharmD, actually, so not an engineer. It's really exciting, and this is just one example of what can come out of this. So, again, we want to welcome you. 2 things that Rama asked me to point out. Your badges, this is how you get in and out of Sinai, so hang on to these on Saturday and Sunday. You'll need these for access. And then just to be aware, there's a couple of signs around that say stuff about waivers for photographs. We do have photographers, videographers during the course of the weekend, and so we want you to be cognizant of that. And we're hoping to use those videos and photographs in future events and future advertising of everything that went on this weekend. As Janice mentioned, the more tweeting and Facebook and that kind of stuff that you do to promote your time here, the better. So welcome, everybody, and thanks. I think the next thing is to move on to our panel of speakers. Any quick questions before we move on? Okay, thanks very much.